Welcome to the April edition of Poetry Square, brought to you by YubaSutterArts&Culture in Yuba Sutter counties in California. I'm Diane Funston. I'm Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture's poet in residence. And every month I bring you a trio of poets from all over and anywhere. And tonight's no different. We have two other poets from California, different parts of California, and we have someone from outside of Buffalo, New York. So we have some variety coast to coast tonight. Welcome also to National Poetry Month, April of every year. We've had a lot of things going on this month for National Poetry Month at Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture. And the month continues with more. And I hope you've been enjoying the little spotlights of different people reading throughout week by week, local people, poets, reading their own work, and people reading their famous poets out of a book, favorite poets out of books. So it's been a great month. And our poet laureate, Marcelo Castillo Hernandez, has been doing his show, and very enjoyable, a lot of things going on. So out of that, my first poem for tonight is an ode to Walt Whitman, who was my first inspiration to poetry when I was 14. And this is Ode to Whitman. Oh, wild and wonderful Whitman, woolly mammoth of a man, larger than life bard, singer of America, storyteller, no, truth teller of the common worker, overlooked, underpaid, undernourished. These things are still true today. We hunger for your song. Feed the trenches, lift up the poor, and I, who often contradict myself, very well. You tended the soldiers' wounds in that uncivil war, certain as lilacs in spring. Your gentle fingers wrapped bandages and held hands, nurturing to those whose eyelids lowered down like flags surrendering in battle. Oh, Walt, brave lover of men, of freedom and peace, I'd welcome you to my humble table, a repast of language, feast of self, New Yorker to New Yorker. Sing to me of the body electric. A change was needed in these times, 2021, where science is still being debated. War is with us always. The despot finally left the White House. A pandemic rages on. Race and politics still divide us. Men marry men, women, but are still terrorized by hatred. Yes, Walt, sing for us in America, a healing verse, hope in your song. Democracy needs to win or we fall to a harrowing urge. And in this beautiful area that we are fortunate enough to live in, the gardens are just bursting right now in spring and just beautiful. So this is called In the Garden. In the garden, surrounded by orchards and rice fields, we planted lemons, oranges, pomegranates, and grapes with enough foliage to shelter us from the reality of city living. Shrubs grew high, vines entwined. We grew poetry in with petunias, picked words from the cauliflower, untangled good lines from nightwing jasmine. You said, carve me and you inside a heart on a tree. We have plenty. I said, cleave onto me in the bushes under cover of twilight. We embraced and became one between the redwood tree and the mission fig. We have always marked this place as ours, deep in foliage that shelters us, from the reality of city living. And my fruit trees all have baby fruit. I have oranges and kumquats and lemons and prunes and pomegranates and blueberries too. And I have a French prune tree. And kind of a little bit about that. I have a bunch of baby French prunes right now. Grandmother picked them every Saturday, fresh from farmers at the public market. She searched each basket for purple oval fruit, dusky blue blush over deep purple. She brought them home after the bargaining, part of the protocol at the market, where growers could bark their wares, prices dropping as morning became afternoon. In our yellow kitchen, she washed them in the old granite ware colander, cut each one in half and popped the pit aside. Both she and the prunes were ripe for canning. After pouring sugar into the large kettle on our 1930s Magic Chef stove, she stirred the fruit and sweetness to a rolling boil, then began the ladling of purple jewels into quart ball jars. Once all the jars were filled, quiet was the rule. She counted the cluck of each jar's ceiling to match the number she filled. Then the jars were put up in the fruit cellar below. Grandmother also canned tomatoes, peas, pears, green beans. For me, there were always the French prunes, sweet, soft, bathed in purple syrup, still warm to sample. Autumn was the market harvest and Grandma's French prunes. And we have a lot of hollyhocks here that grow taller than the houses, and they're budding. And this is about hollyhocks. Velvet vessels with yellow stamens stand high on fuzzy stems taller than the house. Negra, rich pure black like fancy dresses. Magenta, bold and bright as tropical birds. Yellow so light it could be butter. White, fluttering like bloomers hung on wash lines. Bees buried deep, drunk on sweetness, dusted with pollen, they burrow and stay a while. Tall sentinels of the garden see comings and goings of people, of animals. High above the rooftop they sway in wind, each new plant a surprise of color. My childhood had the stability of a lone hollyhock, always white flowers. It grew with neglect behind my grandfather's favorite place to put his webbed folding chair. Not fond of bees, he'd hack it down with a sickle, only to have it return with spiteful vengeance. Now hollyhocks are always welcome, far from where deer would eat them to the ground, far from where hardpan would stifle them. Here, they spread and pop up and multiply. They are in the right environment to grow. Just like me, they keep on thriving. And I have kumquats that are ripening now, turning beautiful orange. And this is kumquats. Trying them for the first time at a tea room in a salad. A miniature orange, I thought, biting into the whole, feeling the tang, the almost sour surprise on my palate, followed by sweetness. Today, I have a tree in the front yard, under the window. Sweet blossom scent wafts inwards, biting into the harvest, the reality of both sensations, taken in small measure, moments in a lifetime, bittersweet. And I don't know about you, but we're kind of getting the inkling of traveling again and day trips and maybe even some overnight trips as we all become vaccinated and healthy and happy to get out again. So this is called Needing to. How the voices kill the night in petty, tired arguments. We should run away. We just got here. Yes, but over a year without adventure, now back in the saddle of our own domesticity, we need to sleep outside again, hear nothing but a creak, feel the chill and shudder freely, yell if we need to. We need to go beyond small town parameters, whether here or there, to the wild, to get naked under the neutrality of stars and turn to one another with soft voices, followed by untamed release. And this is about one of my spiritual favorite places are the Redwoods. And my son lives up in Humboldt County with his family, and we just spent time up there with them and came back. And it's definitely a spiritual place. And this one is called For God Without Naming Him. The huge coastal redwoods aim to reach you, try as they might, falling short. Ferns and sorrel bow your presence as they stretch outward between mighty trunks to catch a glimpse of their creator. The world ocean ebbs and flows with tides, prayers and chants, the call and response of the sacred. Rain falls from the sky like almighty tears of gratitude. Snow allows for a fasting of the land from warmth and growth, revitalized with spring and its communion of renewal, while autumn offers benediction for retreat. We do not always see your miracles. We are accustomed to immediacy. You did not arrange the world that way. Blessings take time to appreciate. They take time to see them for what they are. Miracles in all walks of life. Your works do not bend to organized dogma. You bring light to the darkest of forests and hope to the tiredest eyes. Humility allows us second chances and do-overs. Pride and blasphemy always make for spiritual pollution, impeding growth in the light and ability to thrive, something the redwoods and ferns have already figured out. And my last poem is Ars Poetica, kind of writers writing about writing. Imagination is the geometry of the brain, co-author of both gods and demons, allowing them to sit on opposite shoulders, advise or consent, truth or dare. Would you rather go quietly safe or with a bang and a growl? We are all alchemists of our own prison bars. We forge the iron. Disappointed it does not become gold. Perhaps it does, fool's gold. Don't underestimate the semi-precious, for whoever does has not walked through crystal caverns or held a crown of amethyst. We add color and language to make meaning. We survive the blank canvas only if our minds draw etch-a-sketch rainbows without paint-by-number diagrams or mathematical formulas. Somewhere deep there is music, illumination without electricity, words without grammar or syntax. Write them down. Keep them inside you, where all poetry comes from. Thank you. And moving along with our show, our next poet will be Tom Lynch, who comes from Tehachapi, California. which is it's a mountain town. It's a four-season mountain town, about an hour outside of Bakersfield for the biggest city. And it'd be time to enjoy Tom's poetry. So take it away, Tom Lynch.
Thank you, Diane. I'd like to read a number of poems today that are recent poems. First is entitled Ode to William Blake. O genius poet of history, O progressive Christian activist, eager to cement shut the bowels of reaction, O exponent of horrifying political allegory, O upside-down exponent of dialectical anti-materialism, you correctly screamed, without contraries, no progression. O brave London supporter of the American Revolution, O real-time celebrant of the French Revolution, let the flesh of heaven's aristocracy welt beneath the blows of hellish militias. Let bishops and statesmen of orderly greed be flung into wet ditches to fall on their knees to tend the crops, to suffer there the corrosives and insects. Let the polite goodness of sunny boulevard airs be corralled into its oblivion of base intoxications. Let the unseeing reason of these times fill the holds of commercial space probes for collision, for chance, or for endless drift into outer space. Let your song of liberty circle the earth until reason feeds the poor, until reason heals the sick, until reason protects the peace from killings by robot cop and copycat gun violence. Let your vision of Isaiah's prophecy serve to restore the wasteland that was once an immensity of life. Let the healing of human blights and wounds be sped by that devotion to humanity that you championed in faithful indignation. Let the waters and wetlands be cleansed and no longer left to poison voiceless masses. Let truth find safety on new highways for dreams and thoughts by the oppressed, so that deep sorrows are banished, so that those ransomed among us are freed to return and to thrive by humanity's eternal right to joy and gladness. And the second poem I'd like to read is entitled Meditations on the Gilgamesh and on the prophet Jeremiah. I sat outside in the sun, but my chest caught a chill. I came inside seeking warmth, but the hollow of my chest remained cold. The walls of my lungs strained to press outwards and back. The warmth of my breath upon my hand was not felt in my chest. I entered the kitchen and lit the stovetop. Rising heat rose to shroud potted water. I leaned my chest nearer to warm my torso. I pulled my shirt tails out from my belt, draping my shirt as a tent to catch the heated air. After sitting in a plush chair, I nestled beneath a blanket and scarf. I raised my steamy cup to breathe and take deep sips. I pondered the words of the prophet Jeremiah, God's promised fury against shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of his pasture. I saw where a solitary and uncompromising God exercises jurisdiction to ensure protection of the poor. So it will not serve any good to post signs on our borders stating, warning, you have left God's pasture. No shepherds on duty on the US side. An admission of guilt only in such a sign. Nor will a sign do reading, we retain the right to exclude from entry all non-citizens, not after cloaking our lifestyles in the fantastic profits of agribusiness, where we deny farm workers all but a difficult life and a meager subsistence. And this while we take from them whom we have criminalized Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, and IRS refunds, all money withheld without chance of redemption. And this by our willful reliance on the recording of socials, monetized numbers of predictable mischief, while denying these workers the license to drive, while subjecting these workers to constant fear of arrest, while these oppressions fall against workers who retain indigenous ties to this land, but are corralled by a conqueror's brand of citizenship. And the message of Jeremiah is plain enough, regardless of circumstances of our creation. We are charged to promptly execute judgment to deliver such plundered workers out of the hands of their oppressors. And so all who are comfortable with these transgressions should expect under God to suffer dearly for them. The next poem is entitled Trending International. John Brown displayed courage enough to be Christ-like. He played the slave power, an eloquent martyr, to drive that power's hopelessness into countless tombs of war. Never will that murdering sinner be held up as Christ-like in our churches, poured voices from the pillared tower. But too late. By that time, Christ had become political. And from John Brown's criminal conviction and his sentence to death by Charlestown slavers, a rejuvenated John Brown met his death calmly, so that his assault on slavery's arsenal sounded from the marching of Union troops in the terrible fights to come. And after the Civil War settled, a great political struggle began with another death, this from an assassin's pistol, the death of Abraham Lincoln. And since that time, Lincoln's life has continued to define the shapes and chores of American freedom. Lincoln's act of emancipation guided our parents through World War II, a struggle against racist genocide and wars of subjugation. And the swell of Lincoln's victory founded basic economic and political rights, enabling Roosevelt's four freedoms, enabling creation of the United Nations as the world's concerted resistance, war and wars of colonial conquest, so that going forward, the nations that share this world tend to view issues of war and trade and economic development in an international light. And the cloak of nuclear fear that for too many decades has propelled our nation's Cold War continues to forbid from our hearts the truth of our oppressions directed against many nations as we punish offensive strivings for economic progress by use of sanctions, enforced austerity, and actions of war. And this we do when, should other nations launch their weapons, fire will flare across our world and upon the surface of a star, as upon the surface of a star. With all military bridgeheads but fiery arches between points upon the completed destruction? O sentient wildflower that forever opens for the morning sun, how perceives a nation without thought this flash of fire? How perceives a nation without thought this unseated demise? And the next poem I'd like to read is entitled Communist Action Required. And this is in memory of Bobby Kaufman. Sing the aching cry of human freedom. Sing full awareness of the next world war death toll, total human inventory lost. Reject night patrolling death light glare of alt-right racist hatred. Reject worldwide hatred creep of Hitlerite grabs for affluence. And what future for super male queens wrapped in growls of big muscle TV wrestling deemed real, except tons of mind eager for nuclear war? And ever since the spoils of bash and slash battles for control of mighty rivers, the domination of vision by the few has pressed for human enslavement. And today's mass murder scenarios are devised upon distant mouse clicks. And death in Yemen is not a crime that our nation may by media long cleanse. As nuclear weapons float or picture through world skies, as did motherly Enola Gay, human beings survey screens and scenarios by rote protocols in human fragile stewardship. So by a simple exercise of will, we can end human life on Earth as easily as we might choose to finger pinch a tiny ant to death. And we are that human under stress. Oh, digitized citizen rider of algorithmic anger, wake from deranged hypnotic attack dream of H-bomb death. Remember, after the first nuclear bomb's use in World War II, after many destructive atomic tests, after many Asian and Middle East shooting wars, after believing World War III had been made from airplane-sided missile pads in Cuba, agreements were reached, and nuclear proliferation was, in fact, limited. And now these agreements have expired, words emptied from a vow now ripe for renewal. And as the mightiest nations in world history instituted nuclear arsenals, history shows we can institute their limitations as well. Mention to humanity at every turn, negotiate verifiable nuclear arms control now. And I have one more short one here. I'll read it. It's entitled, Upon Cursing into the Void. I ask, if I talk to God, does that mean God exists? I do not think so. If I talk to myself, I am marked by common sense as suspect. If I talk to the objects of my difficulty, am I not calling out for help? Perhaps better to talk to a God I pretend has existence than to confront the impatience pegged in my mirror. But once again, I do not think so. And if I choose to curse against an unthinking universe, am I not also calling out for help? With only you and you to know the impression of my prayer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marge Merrill. I'm speaking to you from a suburb of Buffalo, New York, where it is not snowing. My first poem this evening is the language of rain. This morning, my bones speak to me in the language of rain. Robins fat with spring sing from the fence. What do they smell on a green wind? The thrum, the pulse, the whoosh of hope. I am immune from the turmoil of hormones, yet a feral spirit waits under dirty fingernails, stalks the pages of a fresh journal opened on the equinox. The sun makes me bright when I ought to be liquid. I do not know how to find that place, that flexible weight, though I listen hard to the robin, the peepers, the resonance of budding. In a month, I will hang baskets on the garage, floral talisman against hard rains and hollow days, the red horses on a carousel. I need to be barefoot and grounded, a lily hardened before taking her place with the tall ones and the hosta. I'm very privileged to have a chapbook that was published last summer by Foothills Press, and I'd like to read a couple of poems from that. A Territory of Folds. When I write bloodless poems on heirloom linen, broken fibers surrender within a territory of folds. These lines, black on white scribbles, release their beauty in the reworking, the growth of an amaryllis child. Sometimes it takes a steady hand and a fine needle to weave in sapphire and trumpeting blue. Sometimes it takes a willing hand to scratch out failed form, a trusting heart to recognize a stillborn attempt is voiceless. Pick over the bones, begin again. This poem is called Catwalks. Poets are asked very often, where does poetry come from? I don't know the answer to that. I think it's an excellent question. But this particular poem came from a painting by Donna Jordan Dussel called Windows on the World number 3. And it's a painting of a factory. Ghosts tend the bones of the dead factory, a pockmarked ghost memory behind razor wire. You don't see at highway speed. Rust and peeling paint mark footsteps of pipe gangs, carpenters, electricians, and operators. At lunch, the guys with seniority mentored guys just starting to chase American dreams. In the boarded-up bar down the street, over Boilermakers, union members talked about the river plant. Doors locked, no notice, pensions gone. Guys just short of retirement. What do they do? Hope to hell there's no strike in June. At dinner, breadwinners comforted wives. That bad one in '69, the explosion that tore up Building 29, the dead, the burned, the disfigured, surgeries and grafts and guys still hideous. Word going around the funeral home in Germantown, those coffins would have been open. The ghosts no longer count seniority in ledgers. The young guys got old on the catwalks, above the phenols, fibers, grit, and dust, before going home smelling of things that don't occur naturally in this world. The tower is their tombstone. Graffiti their message. Kilroy, Leroy, and Roy, Mike and Tony, Willie, Ernie, and Claude were here, retired, and promptly died. And this one is called They Never Cut a Tree to Frame This House. He never said scrambled, ate eggs over easy while the Brat Pack launched cereal and swiped toast. Wednesday had been jazz night at Denizens. On that lumpy sofa in the alley where the musicians smoked, they made a baby and purchased a pile of expectations, with the currency of dreams. And now, though he can't afford a piano or jam like old times, he feels the boogie-woogie beat and the machine shop whine. She never said enough. When one child became 3, became 5. She pins school art and attendance certificates to corkboard, imagines her bachelor's, her master's, her JD. The respected counsel for the defense wipes a nose. She knows she would have made partner, eventually a seat on the bench. Together, they watched youth become obsolete, unexposed film, silent husks avoiding touch in the night. They never cut a tree to frame this house. I write completely in free verse all the time. I'm no master at any of the forms. I think they're like musical instruments, and I have no finesse to play forms. The next poem is There Are No Words for Some Things. Today will not progress much beyond cold pizza for breakfast. The air plants will get a bath. The Venus flytrap, fresh distilled water, a windowsill seat. Upstairs, cynical snake plants reside in tenements and greet me with the kind of warmth reserved for gutter salesmen. The pothos and her cuttings just want to be in the loop. An idea to start seedlings and eggshells is neat, but I won't remember until June. Laundry can sit sour in baskets today, too. The hangnail on my thumb stings because the tea is hot. Words on my laptop dangle from an idea like acrobats working without a net. Finish this with wit and sarcasm. Commit verbicide if necessary. Yes, but it's snowing again. The health department said I can get the vaccine at the fire hall someday. The trash tote needs the weekly walk. Put on socks and sneakers and mask. My thoughts are a dog eating peanut butter. Are you still here? What didn't I say? I'm on a first name basis with the flytrap. This next poem might make you hungry. It's called My Dearest Foodie, and it is inspired by the work of Brandy Nudie, who brought her artwork to a studio that I was frequenting before COVID. And she had been to Italy to study and brought her journals. And so there was quite the immersion in so much artwork and recipes, and it's just, and there were prompts too also. So this is all inspired from her work. In studio today, abundanza. On my plate, complexity, texture, homemade inks from metals and plants, amazing imaginations impatient to allow brushes a sip of rare cooked colors. The poet wanders, gathers triggers, decides purple is the ink for this day. The exhibiting artist has been to Italy for classes. Her sketches of doors, windows, stone stairs, towers yield old world patina. In her journal, Orvieto, a 2-page spread, Pour wine for us. I will serve simple dishes to your educated palate on the patio, if you insist. Arugula with apples, crostoni di mozzarella, thin prosciutto slices, honey dressing, a frittata of leftover tomato pasta and sausage closes our eyes with pleasure. I don't know what wine pairs with zucchini bread. Now let us gesture with fork and spoon, renew arguments about adjectives in orange, in chocolate. This is brilliance owned by horse. The classical gods my teachers worshipped made me vomit because they were sure what they loved was good and therefore pure. Didn't those gods eat poppies, drink laudanum? In my day, generations of brilliance owned by horse strangled on their own voices. I walked away from rock gods jamming in G, glorious bums and sneering spiders busking in the subway. But that's my street out there. Plain folks with pickaxes, shovels, bleeding hands in the baby carriages they settled for. I walk around these rooms and the place I call where I live, placing inventions of imagination on the walls or taped to curtains like proof this room is sacred space for the work. And this is my ode to Charles Bukowski. I guess he's my father figure when it comes to poetry. There is a danger in free climbing. Giants sneeze from bone palaces, and the rocks below are littered with ropeless poets. Backpackers laden with precious words hike in the badlands of a face, unmindful that cold rain becomes sleet. A father's fists and vitriol created a thing of jagged melancholy. People and sidewalks have cracks where symphonies are written like great apologies to leaking faucets and foghorn in the night. Fistfuls of hail hurt feelings. The postman converses with beer, gives discourses on the way of the chosen. Stay in bed for 3 days, get up to feed the cat. Follow him to Hollywood Park for another lesson. Horses and jockeys are metaphors. Bet cheap. All that really matters is the photo finish and how well you walk through the fire. Besides, you aren't ready. And my next poem is called Confession, Tastes Like Tangerine. I fall in love too easily. Wash up on the beach, bruised and swollen after the world rolls over and craves coffee. At my age, confession tastes like tangerines instead of bitter chocolate that I never saw coming. Totally lost in smoothness and the chaos theory of hormones. I wish this was the cautionary tale you'd understand, but I am literally carrying nothing that would pass as a lesson, a caution, point to the true north on some moral compass in the small dark hours or when folding sheets. I try to come to terms with the wreckage, the severe thunderstorm in my head, Search among bare trees for the breadcrumb trail in the snow, because I fall in love too easily still. Thank you very much for your interest this evening. I hope you'll stay for our next poet. This is Jackie, throwing it back out to the West Coast.
Hello, I'm Jacquelyn Smithson Howard. I'm known around town as the Giggle and Smooch Poet because my parents were married for 60 years and I never heard them raise their voice in anger. All they did was giggle and smooch. And when you think about it, that's the best way to live. This first poem from my first poetry book was written for my mother on her 80th birthday. She'll be 91 soon. I stand on her shoulders. If you ask me today what it means to be mom, my heart would know just what to say. Because the picture that plays every day in my heart is of the woman we honor today. I stand on her shoulders as proud as can be, because she is my pillar, my rock. Her guidance and wisdom are the roots of my being. It's the place from where I took stock. You see, my mom has an inner peace, this strength. It wraps you and makes you feel sure. I think it comes from her own mother's life. Grandma had many challenges to endure. My mom spent her life with 7 brothers and sisters, and they didn't have much to speak of. But listen to the stories my mom would tell, and you'd learn they had plenty of love. That love that my grandma passed on to my mom would be rooted and planted in me. That strength and endurance to make the best of your life. Yes, I stand on her shoulders, you see. It was mom who decided she wanted to go to college, and with not one child, she entered with 3. With husband and home, she finished each course and graduated with her teaching degree. Now you'd think with a husband, 3 children and home, my mom would have more than enough. But she wanted to teach, and first grade was her choice, and no student in her class was too tough. Mom taught many years, both first grade and 5th. With each child she nurtured with care. It was the same with us, my sisters and me. It's mom's values that each of us share. From Girl Scouts to proms to college dorms too, mom was always there. Through weddings and childbirth and yes, divorce too, everyone experience she shared. Mom and her arsenal, her reservoir that she treasures, the capacity to make you feel whole. She listened and counseled and laughed and she cried and we felt way down in our soul. My mom is beauty and grace and strength and love. She is sister, wife, and nana too. She is peace and warmth and friendship and hope. She is faithful and wholesome and true. My mom is counselor, advisor, neighbor, and friend. She is wit and will and our base. She is elegance and poise and tenderness. She is comfort, simplicity, and grace. My mom is whimsy and lyrical, free and open. She is candor and color and light. She is shelter from harm and food for your soul. She is wisdom and structure and might. My mom is strength and courage and grit and purpose. She is health and wellness and worth. She's kind and gentle and squeezably soft. She's the woman who gave me birth. Yes, I stand on her shoulders, but let's not forget, Mom is part of a great love affair. We celebrate today her anniversary too, and with Dad, they're a marvelous pair. We stand on their shoulders, my sisters and me. God blessed us with only the best. God fashioned this woman and this man with his love, and the world is forever blessed. My next poem is I guess it's a lesson for me. My father used to teach us life lessons um, through his stories, and this one is called "The Problem Is You." I used to be just like you, silver-tongued with quick wit, and always willing to let you know just what you need and what you'll get. Just keep on pushing me. Every nerve is my last. And I'm so aware and confident that I could school you real fast. But let you know something, because it was me who finally got schooled. I wish I could say I took it well, but I'm never one to be fooled. I learned very quickly I had met my match that day, and the teacher who was chosen was poised in a particular way. That match was my dad, and the lesson was clear. That finger pointing at you has three pointing back at you, my dear. Yep, my stuff may be bad, but your burdens aren't few. There are 3 times as much that's for you to get through. Take care of your house before you cast those stones, and the pain you are feeling will start to heal in your bones. I'm telling you this, he said, not with judgment or to boast. I'm sharing this lesson that was served up with my toast. My mother sat me down and delivered this blow and asked me to never forget this, no matter where I go. So I swallowed my pride and unclenched my jaw, and I decided it was not wise to justify what I saw. I sat for a long time and reran each word. I was trying to figure out how to twist the truth that I'd heard. The truth was hard to admit. I thought this really can't be. I admit it was very hard to admit that the problem was me. Now I have come to let that be the end. But you know you love a good story. I take care of my 3 fingers, and I let my dad and God have the glory. This next piece, when I was younger, I used to just write poems when I saw somebody hurting. And this one is called When Hurt People Are Hurting. When hurt people are hurting, have you ever thought about why? I wonder how long they've been hurting and how many people have passed them by. I wonder what really matters to them, not the when or the where or the how. I wonder if it only matters that they are still hurting now. I bet if you think real hard, you can remember hurting too. And you can think of something that took that hurt away for you. I bet even if the hurt was different, the solution might work just fine. Who knows? We're all a lot more alike. Our differences really make up a thin line. What if it took something simple, say a kind word or a smile? Maybe you could just say hello and listen for a little while. I think any time away from the hurt could surely cause a shift to widen the gap between them and their pain, and possibly cause their spirits to lift. So if you ever have this encounter with a hurt person who's still hurting, perhaps you could offer a sweet hello without them thinking you're flirting. Just offer to listen for a few minutes. It will only cost you a little time, and it may be just what they need to make the next few days sublime. You see, when people are hurting, can actually feel what it feels to feel good, they will do all they can over and over to get back to that precise mood. Lord knows there are plenty of people hurting. Sometimes we can find them in the mirror. I'm telling you that a smile and a sweet hello will cause their hurt feelings to stir. The hurt person may not even take it in. Their hurt has become a barricade. Their perception is jaded from all that is. Be blessed for the contact you've made. When all is said and done at the end of the day, your impact is that you empathize. You can't take their hurt away. Just know that there are no coincidences. Your paths have crossed by design. They feel deep down what it feels to feel good, and the blessings in the lesson will align. This last piece is a favorite of my publishers, and I lost her recently, but this is called Thank You for Changing Me. Everything in life is worth putting in the time, investing in yourself to gain the knowledge, best obtained through the school of hard knocks, or to attain sitting through classes in college. Both approaches have changed me. Information is power, good and bad. It can transform you into something big, or it can send you down the rabbit hole without a shovel or anything which to dig. Knowledge, knowing the difference has changed me. Words matter, so watch which words you let in. They come out differently once they get into your brain. Logic on the left and arts on the rhythm on the right. So much to process, so much to gain. I'm grateful that both sides have changed me. Words also get into your clothes and under your skin. A wise poet tells the story of how words get into your soul. They come into your home and your curtains and your carpet. She was quick to rid her space of a foul-mouthed troll. Thank you for the words that have changed me. I feel your energy that you bring into the space. I watch how you enter the room. I watch how you treat those around you. You make an impression for all to consume. Thank you so much for changing me. I am so blessed that the universe delivered someone with such a kind and gentle heart, someone strong enough to help me grow, someone so well versed from the very start. Oh, how I giggle that you changed me. I'm always discovering that I have complete control. There are infinite possibilities offered from within. I am blessed with supportive people surrounding me. I only let the best get influence under my skin. I'm so grateful that your input has changed me. The best thing about this journey we're on, the beauty and glorious days, the best thing is that it's a two-way street, so the changes can go both ways. Trust me, I know that you're changed too, and I'm grateful if I was any part of that change. Thank you so much.
Well, there you have it. Tonight's Poetry Square for April, National Poetry Month. And so many things are going on. YubaSutterArts&Culture has quite a few things going on for National Poetry Month. The internet is ripe with all kinds of fruit, from poetry, spoken word, just a whole diversity of the written word and the spoken word, which is beautiful. So I want to thank my guests for tonight, Tom and Marge and Jackie. And next month for May, we'll have 3 more poets. We will be having Michael Ellis from Sacramento, Patricia Wenzel from Sacramento, and Portia Choi from Bakersfield. And they'll bring their unique voices to our show for May. And I'd like to thank YubaSutterArts&Culture for what they do for our community, for arts in all its forms. And we'll see you next month in the merry month of May. Thank you, everyone.